Hi, Malachy here from CountryLife Glanbia. I'm here today to show you how to plant a slightly larger tree than the bare root trees that we were looking at in previous videos. So what we have here is a standard tree which is often sold in many garden centres, and it's containerised, so it's grown in a pot like this, as distinct from being grown in the field and dug up and then sold as a bare root tree. So there's a few things to consider before buying a tree, and one of the main things is actually the ultimate size of the tree, how big it will get. So if you're in a town situation, some of our native trees that might be suitable would be silver birch or alder in a medium-sized garden, and in larger gardens and in farms then oak trees and Scots pines are good sized big trees, you know, that will suit big open spaces. So that's one of the most important things you can consider. Also how wet your soil is. You know, my situation here is nice and dry in the summer, nice and moist then throughout the winter, no problem really. So, you know, alder trees would suit wetter ground and oak and pine would suit drier ground. So pH isn't as important for some of these trees because they are native Irish trees and they're well used to most of the growing conditions in Ireland. So what we'll do then is we'll plant this tree, and I'll show you how to do that, and then how to put support on your tree like a stake and tree tie. Now, when planting a tree, anyway, it's ideal that you dig a hole that's actually slightly bigger than what the pot or container that the tree comes in. So in this case now it's about 9 inches across, so we'll dig a hole about a foot and a half wide, and that'll allow a little bit of space for compost and soil to go back in around the roots of the tree, and so it's off to a good start then. Now, so I have the hole dug. It's a little bit wider, like I said, of the original pot that the tree came in. And the best way to remove the pot is to give it a kind of a thump, which should loosen the pot from the root suction, and that should slip off reasonably easy. And then the soil level in the pot should be level then with your existing ground level when you're finished. So in this case now, this tree will be actually about the same height now as my ground conditions around here. So there's still about 3 or 4 inches around the tree, and the reason for that is I wish to add in some farmyard manure, which is, I'm lucky enough to have access to it. It's basically just farmyard manure that's been composted for about a year and a half or so, and I'll add that then into the soil that I dug out. And you don't have to be too strict. Once it's nice and brown, it's generally well composted, and that can be mixed in around 1/3 in volume of the soil that you dug out. And the reason for that is it holds on to moisture. It has a lot of feed, natural plant food in it that the tree will love once it gets to grow in the springtime. So we just simply mix that in a little bit. And our worms will actually help us to mix it in as well. So the worms will actually come in and bring some of that manure around the roots of the tree as well. So I'm just going to make sure that the tree is in an upright position and then firm it in. So use the heel of your foot to firm the soil as best you can all around the tree, and that will stop the wind from rocking the tree a little bit. We'll also add a tree tie now as well, but it's quite important to have the soil firm. So the bamboo that the tree came with is sufficient to support the tree for maybe about 6 months, a year or so, but it's always wise to start off with a proper stake. So this is about a 4-foot stake, and a lot of people would think that the stake needs to be as tall as the tree, but it's actually untrue really, that you only need to support the tree quite low down, and that's simply just so it doesn't blow out of the soil and fall over sideways. It's quite important that the tree be allowed to move a little bit in the wind, because that will make the tree establish stronger roots. So if you have a tall stake, the tree can over-rely on it, and then when the stake rots, eventually the tree may fall over. So it's quite important to have about a 4-foot high stake is sufficient. And then I have a rubber tree tie here, and these are lovely and soft for holding the tree firm and yet not damaging any bark, so it's probably the most suitable thing to use. So now what I've done is I popped in a stake here, and it's actually just outside of where the original root ball would have been in the tree. That's important too, so that you don't damage the roots by driving down a stake too close to the tree and maybe breaking the roots of the tree itself, which will set it back a little bit. So I have a rubber tree tie here, and they have a little slotted holes in these here. So also what I've done too is I popped in a little screw here in the post, And the reason for that is in windy weather these tree ties may slide down the post and then end up being at ground level, which isn't really suitable at all. So the screw will help that from sliding down. So the tree tie goes around the post just above the screw. And then that's it then. So it's just tied around the tree. You can see the tree can move very slightly in the wind, and yet it's still supported at the same time. Now that the tree is in, it's important in the springtime to watch out and give it a little bit of feed, perhaps some more farmyard manure on top of the soil here, and leave the worms work it in, or you can use a feed like Groma or something like that. Just a very small shake is important, not to overfeed. So just a couple of grams or an ounce or so of fertilizer around it, or use farmyard manure either. And then in times of drought, then in dry periods, oftentimes in April, May, June and July, you get dry periods, so it'll be quite important to maybe give it a bucket of water or a watering can of water about once a week or so in times of drought. And if we have a wet summer, there's no need at all, probably. So if you keep an eye on it for the next 2 years, and you may have to loosen the tree tie and take away the stake then after 2 years or so. So thanks very much for watching. We hope it helped you and encourages you to join in the Operation Biodiversity. And if you need any further information, you can look at glanbiaconnect.com or pop into your local branch.